The UK has lost many of its most important natural species, from charismatic mammals to small and inconspicuous creatures, persecuted and pushed to the brink and in some cases totally eradicated. Their absence isn't just morally wrong, but it's also creating imbalances to our natural systems. British culture is sadly deprived of these creatures. But thanks to rewilding, specifically the management of species through breeding programs, translocations and reintroductions, we're able to reinstate missing species to our landscapes. Mallards, lots of mallards. Hello, what's up, how's it going? It's Rob and welcome to Leave Curious. Today I'm going to give you my top 6 species to rewild Britain with. And now unfortunately, they're not mallards. Just to clarify, these are in order of importance. These are species which I think should be here, with 6 being the least important, number 1 being like the number 1. But 6 is still pretty important, don't get me wrong. Just before we get into the countdown, you may have realised that I'm saying 6, when in actual fact this video has 7 species. And that's because I've made a last minute addition. After asking you in a poll to vote between 2 species for the 6th place, as I simply couldn't choose, it was suggested just to do both. Oh, and let me know the species you want to see most down in the comments. So up first, Exmore Ponies. Exmore ponies are perfect for rewilding due to their selective grazing. They favour eating the coarser, longer grass species, which encourages a diverse mix of grass and wildflowers to grow. In doing this, they work for other grazers by opening up the softer vegetation lower down, which cattle prefer to eat. But another key reason to get them widespread is because they're already here and free roaming. You'll find them in the national parks of the New Forest and Exmore. There is sometimes some contention from motorists, but for the most part, they integrate pretty peacefully. One thing to bear in mind is that they require grasslands and woodland habitat. Depending on the size of the herd, these spaces need to be quite big and they will wander into arable and improved grassland sites. But our other national parks, even those further north, would be suitable to home some herds of Exmore ponies as they have rain and ice resistant coats. At 6 we have the Waterfall, a tremendously iconic British species that has declined by more than 97%. But today, there's some awesome rewilding projects to get the vole back in our wetlands. I had the pleasure of filming a watervole reintroduction in Cornwall recently for our good friends over at Mossy Earth, who funded over 100 of these little guys to be released. You should see this video over on their channel pretty soon. Despite their small size, they bring a lot to their environment. Their burrow systems dry the soil, which boosts nitrogen, and over time this drastically changes plant communities along the waterways. But please, don't let the water voles hear this next bit. When it comes to the food chain, water voles make a pretty decent meal for a lot of different creatures, providing it's not American mink, who can wipe out an entire community in just a day. So at 5, I've put the pine marten. Now this is a predator, this is a meso-predator, it's kind of in the middle of the food chain. This is one which has made a pretty good comeback already in the UK, considering their history, which saw centuries of direct persecution for its fur and indirect as gamekeepers seek to deter all predators. And habitat loss has driven them to extinction in Wales and England, with the population just about holding on in Scotland. However, thanks to translocating, they've started to make some comebacks in England and Wales. Pine martens are omnivores, and pretty good ones at that. Although being woodland specialists, studies in Ireland have found that they can survive in a range of habitats. This resilience makes them suitable for introductions for many parts of the UK. Goes to show, when you take away direct persecution, nature usually finds a way. And for the ecosystem, they offer many benefits, acting as both predator and prey, regulating numerous smaller animals, removing carrion, and sometimes a tasty meal for foxes, and maybe some other species later in this list. Oh, and they also disperse seeds in their poop. But what's really cool about the pine marten is their relationship with our native red squirrels. They predate grey squirrels, who have been giving red squirrels a hard time for decades. At the moment in Ireland and parts of Scotland, we are seeing increases in red squirrels where pine martens are present. But what they do for the red squirrels I think is very important, and for what they'll do for some of the later species in this list, I think they have to come back. At 4, I've put the mighty European bison. Now, again, I was torn between the wild boar or even white-tailed eagles for this spot, but in the end, I went with the bison because, well, they're Europe's largest land animal. This size, coupled with their behaviours, really alters the physical structure of woodlands and open areas. The Wild of Blean project in Kent, which got started this summer, will showcase just what they can do. And with this evidence, it seems logical that we'll see them more and more. And simply, They're majestic, awesome symbols of wild nature. Despite their size, they're not dangerous unless repeatedly provoked. And also, bulls can be rather raucous during the mating season and when with young. This could quite possibly be an issue in a place as heavily populated as the UK, but that's not to say with a few changes, respect and common sense that we couldn't make it work. Alright, so we're into the top 3 now. At 3, we have the wolf. Ecologically speaking, the wolf is exactly what many parts of the UK countryside needs. Currently, the wild deer population in the UK is expected to be around 2 million individuals. Even with an annual cull, the numbers are heavily affecting the natural regeneration of trees throughout the UK. This, coupled with the overgrazing from livestock, has left many of our wild areas barren and lifeless. Although wolves will hunt and kill deer, they'll reinstate the ecology of fear throughout landscapes, keeping the deer on their hooves, never grazing a single area for too long, thus supporting the regeneration of trees, initiating trophic cascades, regulating and benefiting the species below them in the food chain. And like many of our extinct animals, they were hunted to extinction, so perhaps we should feel morally obliged to return them. But the reality is that the UK industries and people aren't ready for wolves. Most notably, it's our agricultural industries which would be hit the hardest, but there is a way. I've actually identified 4 key steps to getting the wolf back to Britain. This will be a video that will be released soon. So if it was up to me, I would say yes to the wolf. I would put a viable population up north in Scotland in the Cairngorms. I'd do it tomorrow, but before we get there, we need to educate, we need to prepare industries and the British people to live with a natural predator. And actually, there's another species which you're going to see in just a minute that will do this. Second place, we have the beaver. So for this video, I'm actually in Devon along the River Otter in search of some wild beavers. You'll see in the next video whether if I find them or not, but while I was there, the signs of them are absolutely everywhere. Beavers are ecosystem engineers. They build dams to slow the flow of running water, and this subsequently increases the depth and area of water before the dam. They do this to expand their habitat. Being semi-aquatic, they rely on the water for safety, but the land for nourishment. Many of the UK's waterways have been straightened and the water flows much faster. Beaver dams prevent this flow of water and flooding further downstream, capturing sediments, increasing water quality, and the rising pools of water create complex wetland systems. Where water spreads, life flourishes. However, this flooding isn't always useful. Agricultural, urban and recreational areas have flooded, causing some contentions. This is a topic I'll dive into more in my next video. So the beavers are at 2. They, for me, are the very definition of an ecosystem engineer. I mean, they come out, they work all hours of the night, chopping down trees, changing the structure of the landscape and creating numerous opportunities for other life. I think we need them widespread in our waterways. Okay, so that's number 2. Now we're on to number 1. It's got to be the lynx, right? Come on. So the Eurasian Links is my number 1 because, as stated previously, the UK needs an apex predator more than anything. But why choose the lynx over the wolf? It's because they're secretive, elusive, unheard and unseen, quiet assassins dispatching deer, rabbits and sometimes the odd sheep. An apex predator that will assume that missing role for the UK without too many negative impacts. The main obstacle to getting the lynx back is the threat of predation to grazing livestock. Lynx will kill sheep, there's no doubt about it, but there's measures that can be taken to mitigate and minimise this threat, whether if it's through tighter restricted areas for grazing animals, guardian dogs with the flocks or compensation paid to landowners. There's ways to make it happen. Oh, and don't worry, there's never been a reported death of a human by a lynx. You're safe. So I put the lynx at the number 1. It could have been the beaver, but I feel like the lynx is most important because the UK needs an apex predator more than anything. And I know that there's a few hurdles to get there. It's not going to be an easy ride, but we can get there, and we're going to get there through education. We're going to get there through talking about it. So please share this video with anyone who doesn't know anything about rewilding. And with that, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for supporting the channel. Thank you for liking, commenting and all the rest of it. In the meantime, leave curious.